Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to A Shot in the Dark. Today we have a very special guest, Jerry Hartman. How are you today, Jerry?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So, to start things off, I was recently told that you had started up a nonprofit a little while ago called Eclectic Reel. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I was in my grad school program, I did a Master's of Fine Arts in Digital Cinema. I did my thesis documentary on Suriname and mercury poisoning from gold mining. And usually when you do a short film or a documentary that's, I guess, a little bit longer, you a lot of times just start a limited liability corporation so that any assets go into that. It's easy to track funding, and if you got sued, then the corporation kind of takes the fall. So I started Eclectic Reel as an LLC first, and then the work that we did ended up being just kind of nonprofit work. We didn't do it to actually make money. So a year or two later, we kind of transferred it into a nonprofit. And our goal is specifically to do community-directed filmmaking surrounding environmental issues and community issues, human rights issues.
I see. So what inspired, I guess, you and your wife to start this nonprofit?
It's kind of a crazy story, but my wife did a grad program up in Seattle called Community and Environment, and we met some activists that had a nonprofit called Suriname Indigenous Health Fund, and he had worked for the U.S. Embassy down in Suriname. He had gone into the interior and done a lot of research on communities, and he found really high levels of mercury, like way out of whack of what the EPA would recommend. And he realized that no one had ever taken that data and shared it back to the community. So they had been studied for like 10 years, but no one had shared the data back to the community. So when he's finished with the U.S. Embassy, he said, "What are you going to do with the data?" And the U.S. Embassy said, "Well, we just pass it off to the Suriname government." And so basically he took all of his own work when he left, and he went to the communities directly and said, "I want to show you what we found because nobody else is sharing that." So we got connected into that story and thought that it was just a really intriguing story. And that's kind of how we got connected into this, these issues.
I see. And you guys have made several documentaries now. Some of these are Yakima Clean Waters, Indigenous Suriname, and Doctrine of Discover. Could you tell us a little bit about some of these and which one was your favorite?
Yeah, well, they each have some unique value, and for me, it's really hard to pick a favorite in that regard. Yakima Clean Waters was a collaboration between a fundraising class here at the university and a documentary class, and we used the community-directed approach, so community members filmed their own footage, and then we helped put together a story and had them approve it. It was specifically targeted at kind of the Council of Native American Leaders for the Yakima Nation. Indigenous Suriname was a kind of an outgrowth for 5 or 6 years from my thesis work back in 2008. Started with First Peoples of Suriname, turned into Inside Suriname, and then Indigenous Suriname, and then Inside Suriname. So stories kind of unfolding throughout that. And then Doctrine of Discovery, we were hired by the Mennonite Church to do some work because the basis of kind of indigenous rights goes back to land rights and who was given rights of land. And it was, the European settlers, and anyone else was seen less than perfect, especially if they had any belief outside of Christianity. So all of the work came from kind of our interaction with the people that we started working with. And then once you start working in a certain field, your name kind of goes out there. And so people contact you. In Suriname specifically, I was contacted by the Dan Rather Group, specifically for connections in Suriname. So it's kind of strange that, working here in a small town, in the western part of Washington State, that a company from New York City would give me a call to ask about specific things that I've worked on.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wanted to take a little bit, or just a quick second, to talk about the film you guys are currently producing, Marrow of the Mountain. Could you kind of go over what that one's on?
Sure, and I'll clarify that we're not the producers necessarily, we're the fiscal sponsors of this. So again, this is a weird connection back to our original work in Suriname. My wife had a poster at Whitman College up about our work, and one of the research fellows there saw our poster and saw it. It was dealing with mercury pollution from gold mining. And this is happening in a lot of countries where mega mining corporations from Canada, from the US, and from other countries are coming into, South American countries, and they're basically paying the governments of those countries for land rights, for mineral rights. If they find minerals that they want to extract, then there's a lot of issues surrounding environmental devastation, because they usually go in and deforest first, then they mine. Sometimes the mining practice uses a lot of water, so there's a lot of runoff. So it's a very similar issue that they're dealing with in Ecuador. So we got connected to this group of people working on the project. It was actually kind of an outgrowth of a Nat Geo grant officially, and it's moved on from there. But we connected one of our seniors, Clayton Cruz from After 95. He did a senior project for finishing his degree by going with this group and actually filming a lot of footage for them. And it's about 2 or 3 years now into the process. There have been 2 Kickstarter campaigns. And so we do give advice and collaborate with them, but they're in charge of the documentary. But our nonprofit can mean that anybody that donates to their Kickstarter, they can get tax write-offs. So we kind of handle the accounting side for them in that regard.
Okay. And that's amazing stuff that you guys are doing. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in to A Shot in the Dark, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.